Hello and welcome to Gardening Australia. This week I'm on a road trip and I've stopped in at an iconic regional city to see what's been growing. I'll be back a little later to share what I've dug up. But while I take a look around, here's what we've got in store for this week's show. Millie whips things into shape this autumn.
It's time to do a range of jobs to keep the garden healthy and productive.
I've come to Warramah country, catch up with some old friends, to hear their stories and to help out with Mob working on country.
I'm taking a closer look at all the amazing Tassie native plants here in the Royal Tasmanian Botanical Gardens.
It's an incredible, incredible tree.
And we meet a creative couple making great works in and out of the garden. Located between Sydney and Canberra, Goulburn sits on the ancestral lands of the Gundangara people. It's actually Australia's first inland city. It's home to the big merino, but most importantly, it's also home to Bojana's suburban garden.
Hello, Costa.
How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Lovely to meet you. Oh, what a pleasure.
Welcome.
Look at your garden. Wow, if I was an insect, I would be in heaven.
Blue-banded bees, look.
It really is. Look at it.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I can see blue band.
Yeah, there's
two
one,
blue-banded
there's
bees
another-
over
Yeah,
there. Champion
Thank you.
grower. Wow.
thank you. Bracken Sarah, it's called.
Wow. That's one of the biggest ones I've seen. And this one, like
Cafe au lait.
Cafe au lait.
Yeah.
I like to look at the world through your eyes.
Yeah,
It's like,
yeah.
yay. Ozena sees the world
Yeah.
through these. They're beautiful. So why so many flowers? Where did that begin?
In Poland, we had the farm and we had the land, so was always, flowers, fruits, veggies.
When did you come to Australia?
1987, I came to Australia.
Yeah.
I lived in Sydney, different places for 10 years, and then
Yeah.
I met my partner, and he was from Goulburn.
What was this garden like when you first got here?
Totally empty. It was just an empty block. The soil, it's heavy. It's like heavy clay, solid. I have to get the pick and chip bit by bit. It's was sometimes like a concrete.
Yeah, so you've had to work hard.
Yes, to get like it is now. I was putting some plants just for the green manure. Anything I put my hands on, I just throw them in, dig them in a lot of cow manure. And I was going, asking people if I can go on their paddock to go to cows and just pick, from there.
As a gardener, what's it like to grow here in the Goulburn climate?
I have to be frost hardy. I had tomatoes and already had the fruits because frost is coming. I decided I put a blanket on the top of them. And in the morning, the blanket was that thick, covered with the snow. I was thinking, coming from Poland, I'm coming to warm country. That was my impression, and I had a shock in Goulburn.
You've got so many layers in the garden.
Yes.
I like your composition, the eye you have to just creating these combinations.
Oh, thank you.
And the Fortifies is kind of like
Yeah.
the frame.
Yeah.
And then everything else in between, you're like an artist just splashing colour and texture.
I didn't have in my head, oh, that's how it's gonna be, how it's gonna be look like. No, it was just trying, and then slowly, as I attending the garden shows and talking to the experts and start getting, bit idea. Always asking, it's never then you know enough about anything. You think everything is this, and then you find something else from different place. You can join the garden group, so you can ask the grower, so that's how I learn, by asking people.
And now this is your orchard. But I mean, this is only 1, 2, 3, 4 metres by
and
about
that many
7 metres.
Yes.
And you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
That's
There's
right.
about 16 fruit trees in here.
That's right.
I mean, look at the trunks on these.
Look at this near, yes.
They're monsters.
Yep.
So they've been in for about 25 years.
Yes, that's right.
How many
yes, so
kilos of cherries do you think
Oh,
you've
a lot.
enjoyed?
Once I had 18.5 kilos of cherries.
18.5 kilos.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
yes.
Look at the size of your fruit. This apple
Yeah.
is like a bowling ball. I could just
Yeah.
pitch it there beautifully. Wow.
You know, the secret is to, when spring, thin them out. If it's too many fruits, you remove some. So that's why you get the good size. I'm trying to grow organically. So you got the good bugs, but a lot of bad bugs. The pollinators will come pollinate the flowers, and when the fruit's set, nothing. It's the only solution I find. I find the nets with the really fine, and they got the zippers. So you can open and get your fruit and put back on. Oh, hello.
Oh, I can come out. She's in.
Okay, look at this fig.
I love it. You're just straight in there.
Actually, originally, I got from Greek lady, and her mother, a long time ago, brought this one from the original fig from Greece. But try this one. Have a
That
taste.
is exactly
Have a
like
taste
the
of this one.
that I have seen and eaten on the Greek islands. I'm 8 years old at my grandparents' house.
Yeah? Oh,
Oh, that's really special.
it is.
It's such a pleasure to meet people like Bojana and introduce them to you and illustrate that here we have someone who wasn't a gardener, but in overcoming the challenges and having a go and experimenting and dealing with the ups and downs, she's evolved and created this wonderful work in progress.
I come from work, and first thing, I just go around and sometimes grab a cuppa and walk around and look what else needs to be done, and sometimes can be frustrating, but it's good, it's relaxing, and I just cannot imagine anything else.
Can I keep bonsai inside? As we all now know, there is no such thing as a true indoor plant. Every species has its own unique temperature, light and moisture requirements. And for some, that makes indoors ideal. Common bonsai species such as ficus do well indoors in very bright light. However, others like maples or conifers really need direct sun and good ventilation to thrive. So check the plant's requirements first. It can be helpful to bring your bonsai inside or at least under cover under extreme conditions like hot sun, torrential rain or strong winds. You can also bring them inside to enjoy for short periods, like when they're flowering.
Why can't I readily bring plants from the eastern states into Western Australia? Well, WA is largely geographically isolated from the rest of the country. In fact, Perth is known as one of the most isolated capital cities in the world. And not only has this resulted in WA having some very unique flora, it's also meant that we're free from a number of pests and diseases that have spread along the east coast. Now, plants, including seeds and bulbs, can readily harbour pests and diseases, which is why our biosecurity regulations limit their movement.
There are so many plants in the bush that could be used in your own home garden. This is a perfect example. This is Canedia prostrata, the running postman. It's a ground cover, quite a thick ground cover when it gets going. It has these wonderful, vivid pink-red flowers that just pop out and lovely creeping stems that just go everywhere. It's a good name, a very apt name for a beautiful little ground cover plant.
There's some stunning places to explore around Goulburn, including historic Riversdale Homestead and its gardens, built way back in the 1830s. In the 1960s, it became a National Trust property. And over the past decade, volunteers have been hard at work restoring the garden to its former glory. Also hard at work is Millie, with some seasonal jobs to keep you busy as the cool weather kicks in.
really kicks in, it's time to do a range of jobs to keep the garden healthy and productive. I've been away from the garden for a few weeks, and in that time we've had a frost and lots of rain, which means that the summer flavours are really heading south. So it's time to say goodbye. I don't think I know a gardener who won't tell you how important the brassica crop is for your winter meals, particularly in a cool climate. And this is one of my absolute favourites. It's spigariello, and I plant it in late summer to make sure that once that really cold weather hits, I've got big established plants that I can harvest from. But in the cooler, moister weather, and particularly when I have them underneath a net, as I often do, you can end up with a lot of fungal problems. There's lots of rots and mildews that... Hello, little dog. Did you sneak out? This is Louie, Squid's little cousin. So you can get a lot of fungal problems on the leaves and stems of different brassicas, and a simple way to try and prevent them is to make sure you've got good airflow around the plants, and that means removing some of those lower leaves. Some of them are really clearly diseased, but others are actually quite healthy. But if they're a risk of touching the ground or they are just congesting the area, I like to take them off. For that little bit of photosynthetic loss down the base of the plant, you actually get a lot of a health gain. And the main growing is actually up at the tips. So pull those leaves off and they'll be happy and healthy. One summer flavour that is really at its end are the tomatoes, and as much as it breaks my heart to pull them out, it is time. I need to make room for the next crop in the rotation. When it comes to these finishing crops, anything that is a little bit coloured, just a blush, will continue to ripen indoors. I'm picking the green ones off as well. But if you've got plants with lots of green fruit left, it is worth lifting them out of the ground, whole plant, and hanging them upside down in the shed. And then many of them will actually continue to ripen on the plant. Those coloured ones, as they ripen, I'm going to make some sauce, and then the green ones, I'm going to ferment them with a bit of chilli. I reckon they'll be fantastic as a winter hit of flavour. You might notice that I'm pulling things out in different ways. The tomatoes came up, roots and all, because I've had some disease issues and I want to get as much of that material out of the garden as I can. But lots of the other annual crops, I just cut them off at ground level, which leaves the roots in the ground. And that means it actually rots down into the soil and contributes to the organic matter in the bed. It's cutting the middleman out of the compost. That's me. These steel stakes have been a great investment. They cost a bit of money to start with, but I reckon I'll be using them for 20 years. But most importantly, when they come out of the ground, I can wash them really well and leave them out in the sun for a couple of weeks before I use again, which makes them sterilised and ready to go. Hello, Booey. Now that the tomatoes are out, I can prepare this garden bed for the next crop in the rotation, and it's really important, no matter how small your veggie garden is, make sure that you move the different families of plants around the garden. Don't grow them in the same spot year after year. Now, the next crop in our rotation here is garlic, and it's not a technical rotation, it's just because the timing works really well. The tomatoes come out at the same time as the garlic needs to go in. The first step to bed prep is to loosen the whole area with a fork. Then I add a dusting of dolomite lime because the garlic, as an allium, really likes a sweet soil. Next, I'm going to pile on a whole lot of homemade compost. And then I'll incorporate it all in with the fork again. When it comes to garlic, really there are so many varieties to choose from. I've got one that I've been growing for about 10 years. It was given to me by my former landlord, and it's an absolute powerhouse. But I also made the mistake of going to a garlic festival this year. So you can see I've come home with a whole lot of new varieties to trial as well. Now, it doesn't matter what garlic you grow, there's a couple of tips to getting it off to a healthy start, and that is only break it up the night before you're going to plant. You don't want to risk those bulbs rotting away for months sitting in storage. And the second thing is to soak them. Water does well, but I always put a little lick of fish emulsion in there as well. And you can see the roots on this clove are absolutely ripping away. Once that gets in the ground, it's much more likely to shoot quickly, and that means it's a reduced risk of rot, which can be a problem. But really, there is not much to planting them. You just got to poke some holes and stick them in. Space your individual cloves about a hand span apart, with a little bit more between rows. I always try to get them a couple of knuckles deep, and don't forget, pointy side up. But they are amazing. They have contractile roots, so if you go a little too deep or a little too shallow, they'll pull themselves into the right spot. One thing I know to be true is that when your garden is trying to tell you something, you need to listen. And particularly when it comes to a vegetable patch, you'll often have more success by taking the garden's lead. And this bed is actually a great example. This is my winter greens bed, or in this case, it's like burgundies and reds and multicoloured leaves. But it has been really carefully sown and planted for productivity through the cooler months. But in amongst my really carefully chosen varieties, I have an absolute sea of self-sown lettuce. And it's telling me something. These really want to grow here. Commonly, when you have something germinate of its own accord in the place and at the time it wants to, it'll actually outperform those that you've planted. So I am going to take this lesson. The lettuce is always right. I'm going to thin it to a reasonable spacing between plants, and I'll even transplant some of these seedlings into the bare spots. I reckon by taking advantage of what the garden wants to grow alongside what I want to, I'm going to have a far better success. And really, that's what this is all about, is experimenting and learning from your garden. You do it every single day. And I don't know a bad moment in the garden. I hope you have a beautiful time this weekend too.
Next week is the start of Reconciliation Week, and the theme this year is now more than ever. It's a reminder for all of us that there's still work to be done. Clarence is here with a special story about the Warramai Green Team and how they're working together to heal country.
I'm visiting Warramai country, north of Newcastle in New South Wales. Right on the coast, there's plenty of sun and surf and natural wonders to explore. Like the giant sand dunes that shift and move with the wind and tide. Created thousands of years ago, they fill me with awe. Beyond are diverse coastal forests and plenty of spots to take in the views of the bay. This landscape is one of Mother Nature's great gardens, and I'm here to catch up with some old friends who know this country best, to hear their stories and to lend a hand to the local Warramai mob working on country. I'm visiting the Marook Cultural Centre in the Port Stephens Shire to yarn with my old mate, Andrew Smith. Oh, hey, brother. All right, long time no see.
It's been a while.
Yeah.
Welcome.
This looks unreal.
Welcome, brother. Come and let me show you around.
These days, Andrew's the CEO of the Warramai Local Aboriginal Land Council. So this is the local area here?
Yeah. Actually, it's one of the original maps of Port Stephens.
And I'm guessing the heads there, Tomaree, that's the local name.
Yeah. Well, you've got Tomaree, which is actually Durumiri, which actually means like big lookout or place of rainbows. So when the ocean smashes on the rocks, this haze of the water creates rainbows. There was an original plan later in life for Port Stephens to become the capital of Australia instead of Canberra. But they eventually done away with that because they realised they couldn't control the moving sand. So, yeah,
they
beautiful.
wouldn't have got any work done. Look how beautiful it is here.
Well, that's right. People say it's God's country, but I tell them, no, this is where God comes to have holidays.
It's a nice dance circle.
Yeah, it's a great welcoming space. Would you believe I nearly lost those totem poles to landfill? They're the original foundation poles from the building before we refurbished it, from a local artist with local stories.
With over 70 staff and a passionate board behind him, Andrew's developed this space as a launch pad for a range of not-for-profit social enterprises, from tourism to land management services and a local plants nursery.
Yeah, well, the Green Team, probably over 15 years ago now, started off on the smell of an oily rag. And from those humble, small beginnings, we've built into this successful, I guess, land management green team, which does social, cultural and commercial contracts.
As a social enterprise, you're really providing opportunities for community, but also investing back into the community. It's amazing.
Absolutely. I never wanted to be the CEO of the richest land council. I want to be the CEO of the richest community. And that means giving back to our people in any and every single way that we can think of. We really take, our future in our own hands and make our own decisions. We've got a relationship with the stars, so we're astronomers. We've got a relationship with the waterways, we're marine biologists, a relationship with the land, we're ecologists, geologists, geomorphologists, all those fancy names. So we literally still have men's business, women's business, and all of that still exists very much as part of our identity and our culture. And we refuse to let that go because you can't deny who you are. And we are country. That's why we say Ngaya Barra, which means I country, not my country. I country is that we are part of, and we've got a responsibility to protect it.
Yeah, we belong to the country. The country doesn't belong to us.
Exactly right.
I guess with any enterprise, the hard part is getting the right people, but the good part is also getting the right people.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've got an ecologist on our team. We've got Mary Greenwood. I poached Mary. She was ready to retire, God bless her, and I asked her to come and be my English liaison officer. Everyone has an Aboriginal liaison officer. Why shouldn't we have an English one? I thought that just made sense. And through Mary's passion, her skill and knowledge, and her desire to train Aboriginal people in land management practices, we've been able to really kick some good goals.
Yeah, no, he's like, yeah.
What's that?
This is Banksia roba. Swamp Banksias.
Yeah, just wondering, Mary, how long till they become established?
Your Casuarina glaucas will take about 5 months from seedlings to saleability.
How long do these take to, like?
The robas, those only take 4, 5, maybe 6 days to start germinating. Although they germinate quicker than the Casuarinas, they don't grow as quickly.
Interesting.
95% of our seed production is collected from Warramai land. We're a seedling production nursery, and we sow it, we grow it, we pot it up. This nursery will actually house between 60 and 100,000 plants, and around the Port Stephens, you've got the coast, the sand dunes, you've got sclerophyll forests, you've got wetlands. We tend to have quite a diverse range of species, and we try to at least have some species for the different environments.
Working alongside Mary is Ray McMillan, Operations Manager for the Marooke Green Team, and he leads the team on the ground. Out on country, on the Port Stephens Peninsula, a planting project is underway, and I'm joining the crew. Feel like I should take some more plants. Thanks. Nice being outside all the time.
Oh, that's it, yeah, and it's good variety as well. Keep your hands dirty and stuff, but I'm also learning like every day off like elders if we see them out on the field, and just knowledge of different people that have been doing it for a long time. And in different environments on country, like, could be working on the water or like in the bush like today, so yeah, it's good.
I guess for anyone who works with plants or works in the bush, you can actually see the results.
Well, that's it. I mean, you look around, you see all the trees that have grown hundreds of years, all the stories that they tell, and here we are on a clear patch planting more plants and trees, and in 100 years they'll be big and strong, and they'll have stories to tell for the next generation or generations to come to learn from them.
Well, we better get these in the ground,
that's it.
What you think is a big eucalyptus tree, seeing it in the tiniest little seed and planting it and watching it grow, and then being planted into the ground to become the eucalyptus that we think of. To save you to come back in 5 or 10 years and think that like you saw that tree grow from a little seed, it's pretty wild.
It's a really good feeling when you see the kids, they first come in and they don't really know everything's green. Then when you stick them in the nursery for a little while, bring them out here and put them on the ground itself, give them the hands-on experience, and then they come back and they start throwing names at you of plants, and you go, wow, yeah.
healing country, repairing country is the backbone of what we should be doing in the modern day going forward for the generations to come. For my children, my children's children, to go back out in the country to see it and feel it for what they once did from their ancestors. I try and repeat word for word what the elders say to me, and tell my kids pretty much immediately when I get home, I share that knowledge and even take them out there to that area where I worked that day to run it past them again, so it gets ingrained in their minds.
Yeah. Oh, man, I'm tearing up. I've got goosebumps, man. I love that. That's why I do what I do. Far out. After that, I reckon I need a drink of water. And with the seedlings in the ground, they'll appreciate a big drink of water too. They're ready to grow, with tree guards to protect them as they get established. Next, the crew are heading to a significant site they know well, near the township of Mullabulla. Out here, the crew have been learning about caring for country using fire. And today, we're here to see how the country's looking after a cool burn and to carry out some maintenance.
It usually takes up to 2 to 3, sometimes 3 burns through one site to get it back to its natural element, what it used to look like before it was all closed off and the weeds were just allowed to take over. It's absolutely amazing the amount of ground coverings and everything that have come back in this area compared to what it used to look like before we done the burn. You can actually walk through it now, before it was that thick you couldn't even walk through it.
There's a little baby there, bro.
Nice, huh?
Decent size one. Coming back. That's a bigger one, yeah. Got to start planting more of these, eh?
Yeah.
Must be nice to be able to walk through here after the burn and see the difference.
Oh, 100% it is. Like, this is what I believe what a bush should look like.
Yeah,
you should be able to walk through it and find all the, like, native stuff coming through. Whereas if we look over the other side where we didn't burn and you see all the invasive species come through.
And now that we've cleared most of the areas out with the burn itself, so it's just a matter of coming back out and doing the follow-up to just get rid of some of that vegetation, get it down on the ground. So using chainsaws and posi tracks to clean the area up, and then it promotes the growth for the native trees to get more light in and start growing again.
Being on my own country, to see the process before, during and now after, it's really special.
And things like the grass tree. Like
the grass tree, yeah.
This fire's kicked back really well.
Yeah, they get really big and really wide. To rejuvenate them, you burn them, and it gets rid of all the dead, and yeah, makes it all nice and healthy again, and gets massive.
So it's been a great burn. When you look at the canopy, it's still really nice, but basically nothing underneath. Now, that if a fire came through, it probably wouldn't take hold. It not only protects the environment, the plants, the animals in here, but it also protects the urban area that surrounds this particular spot.
Yeah, the saying is, you heal country, you heal ourselves as well. Look, Mother's everything to us, but yeah, it's about that opportunity that Warramai presented for us, and we should all take it with both hands and learn. We've got 65,000 years of wisdom, and that should not be denied or ignored. And we can all talk about it and share it as one community, black fellas and white fellas together as one, going towards unity.
It's been a real privilege to be on Warramai country, and it always recharges my batteries to be out in the bush and to see mob working on country. We are all connected in some way and can certainly do our best to care for our Earth Mother, even if it is in your own garden.
Still to come on Gardening Australia, Jerry shows us how to avoid taking home a dud. We meet a couple of creative gardeners.
When we found this particular property, it had everything that we needed.
And we've got all the jobs you need to power through the weekend ahead. This Sunday marks Botanic Gardens Day, and it's a great opportunity to get out there and appreciate what your local botanic garden is doing to help promote and protect plants. For my money, one of the best is down in Hobart, and Hannah's dropped in to check out some of the stunning Tasmanian plants.
Tasmania has such an amazing array of native plants, but because they're often growing in remote and rugged places, it can be tricky to get a good look at them. However, there is somewhere you can find lots of them growing together in one easy-to-visit location, and that's in the recently updated Tasmanian collection at the Royal Tasmanian Botanical Gardens. The curator of Tasmanian flora is Chris Lang.
We kicked off landscaping works back in September 2020. And preceding that, there was a really nasty wind event blow through the gardens back in May 2018. And we lost several big trees, not far from where we're sitting now. And out of that pretty miserable event, we were determined to realise our long-held plans to further develop our Tasmanian flora collections in this area. So that's when we kicked off. And the area was officially opened in December 2022. So yeah, it was a big landscaping effort. Well, this is our sort of ornamental horticulture space through here, where we're sort of demonstrating the flexibility and the versatility of Tasmanian native plants, how they can be used in different ways in the home landscape.
Yeah, I can see a range of things happening. You're box hedging some natives, you're espalering some others. I've never seen that happen with different, you've got acacia and banksias there.
Yeah.
Anyone can walk in here and go, oh, I could do that in my small compact space. Or if you have larger areas, you can really knock yourself out and do all different types of things.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can also grow them in pots as well.
You can, yeah. No, we have a few containers here with a number of combinations of plants. Here, Hannah, we have Lycopodioides, one of our rare and threatened plants, growing in combination with a lovely everlasting daisy. So, you know, not seen this one in a pot before. Lovely result.
Now, a lot of people think they can't have natives in their garden because they're going to grow too big, but you can actually have so many variations with just one type of plant.
Oh, there is, yeah. Certain species can really express their growth form and habit in different ways. An example is Banksia marginata, silver banksia. So this one is a fairly fastigiate, upright form. You more commonly see it as this sort of more open, spreading, kind of large shrub, small tree, you know, that can reach 15 or so metres. There are other forms that are smaller than this, only get to sort of 2-3 metres. So yeah, genetic variability within this one species.
And then down here we've got some leptospermum covering the ground, but then over beyond you've got a nice bushy shrub growing up.
Yeah, yeah, leptospermum petal point spread, which is a very low-growing prostrate form, really looks quite different to the kind of more upright form that you more commonly see in the wild.
So there really is something for everyone. You just have to ask the questions and find the right form for your site.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Look, there's quite a few offerings out there nowadays, you know, through nurseries.
A lot of people won't realise how much effort's gone into all this landscaping, but it's been a bit of a journey, hasn't it?
An awful lot of work has happened in this space. The site itself, there's heavy clay. So we put a soil mix in, 1 part coarse sand and 1 part composted pine bark. You can see we're sitting on these dolerite rocks. They're a real feature through here. We needed that to retain bulk quantities of soil that we applied to the site. And then our feet are just resting on this lovely tumbled sandstone, which is sitting over a drainage line. There's nothing more iconic than Huon pine, Hannah. I mean, it's an endemic, only occurs in Tasmania, lives to a great age, in excess of 3,000 years. It's an incredible, incredible tree.
3,000 years?
Yeah.
That's impressive.
Yeah, it is, isn't it? I mean, one of the longest-lived organisms on Earth.
Yeah, it's so special. And right now, this particular one is a male tree. It's a bit of a special day. What's happening here?
Oh, well, pollen, you know, the sun's kind of out and, you know, pollen's been released.
Yeah.
You see it there? Don't breathe in too deeply. So, yeah, this one's covered in male cones at the moment. So this is a male tree. We have female trees here as well, and sometimes the cones occur on the same tree. So, but Yeah, beautiful, beautiful plant.
Stunning.
We've moved from the drier northern end of the collection to the southern end of the collection, where we have a lot of cool temperate rainforest and wet forest species on display.
Yeah, and you've got this beautiful, quite popular man fern, which is the larger one that we have here.
Yeah, look, these tree ferns are just superb, aren't they? They reach a grand size, I think around about 15 odd metres in height, so they're quite a tall fern. And you know, these things produce something like 800 million spores, an average size plant.
And then over here we've got a celery top pine. That's a pretty unique tree, isn't it?
It's an endemic Tasmanian tree, and it's called celery top because the leaves resemble celery leaves. And in fact, they're not leaves at all. They're flattened stems. The leaves are reduced to tiny little brown scales. That flattened stem that does all the photosynthesis work.
And then we're standing beneath a beautiful myrtle beech tree. Such a stunning one.
Oh, yeah, Nothofagus cunninghamii, and they are amazing trees, and they can get up to sort of 40, 45 metres or so, maybe even a bit more. And you see these as dominant rainforest canopy trees.
And then you've got another little Nothofagus, don't you?
Yeah, Nothofagus gunnii.
Yep.
So it's endemic to Tasmania, so it occurs nowhere else in the world. A really special plant. It's found at high altitude, above 1,000 metres. It's actually the plant on the Botanic Gardens logo, so yeah, it's very significant for us.
This is a pretty fancy boardwalk.
It provides greater access through this space. Part of the whole experiential nature of the, moving through this collection.
And I'm loving the look of this Retura up here in flower.
Yeah, it's such an architectural plant. It's in the Ericaceae family. It has those beautiful white flower spikes.
So sculptural.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's a beautiful plant. I love it.
And meanwhile, over here, you've got some young leatherwoods planted.
Yeah. Well, this is a cool temperate rainforest species, endemic to Tasmania. Can get to around about 30 odd metres, more commonly 10 to 15 metres. And of course, it's famous for its leatherwood honey.
If you love beautiful native plants, then the Tasmanian collection in the Botanical Gardens is the perfect place to come and be inspired.
We want people to walk away with that deeper understanding, and I think out of that, there's a greater respect for Tasmania's, precious plant heritage.
Nurseries can be dangerous places. You think you're heading in just to buy a bag of potting mix, and suddenly your basket is full of new friends and your wallet is significantly lighter than when you came in. One of the greatest temptations in a retail nursery is a clearance rack. It's where the nursery marks down stock that's past its best in the hopes that some brave punter will be willing to roll the dice in the name of a bargain. Plants can only survive in their small retail pots for a certain amount of time before they start to suffer and need to be moved on. The discounts can be high, but so too the risks. Fortunately, I'm a seasoned shopper and I'm a former garden centre manager, and I live in hope because 2 of my best purchases throughout my life came from a reduced sales stall. So I'm here to give you a few pointers on what's worth the risk and what's best left behind. The first deal breaker is pests and diseases. If you import them into your garden, it'll be at least a headache, and at worst, it could be a complete outbreak throughout your garden. So, inspect the plants. Don't just look at the tops of the leaves, look at the undersides as well. And if there are tight clusters in the plant, check those. It may be there that you'll see clusters of scale insects and mealybug feeding on the plants. Signs of feeding by pests can include mottled pinpricks, chewed leaf edges, and withered or stunted new growth. Check also for eggs or pupae on leaves or on surface roots. They're often shiny black, brown or white raised bumps. And there may be trails of ants running up and down the stems, exploiting those pests. In a situation like that, it's best to forget the plant. However, this is a frangipani and I'm in Queensland. If you buy a perfectly healthy frangipani, it's quite likely to get frangipani rust like this plant, and that appears towards the end of the season. That is not a reason not to buy this plant. There's no treatment for frangipani rust. Dispose of affected leaves in the bin. Do not compost them. All you have to do is understand the specifics of the disease, and in this case, this plant is a bargain. The next thing to check for is the surface of the pot. If it looks soggy and smells bad, possibly the mix has stagnated and the roots have started to rot. Now, you can test this by rocking the plant. If there's no resistance and it moves over easily, then it's probably got a really bad root system and it's not worth buying. Root rot can present in foliage as wilting, yellowing, discoloured leaves, often with brown spots surrounded by a yellow tinge. But this plant is fine. However, it's got one of my pet hates, hairy bittercress or flickweed growing at the base. It's really hard to control at the best of times. Now, if the plant is so desirable and the bargain is really good, you can still buy this plant. What I do is I remove the surface, put that into a bag, that's where most of the plants and the seed are, stick it into the bin, top dress the plant, keep it in a quarantine area in my nursery until I'm sure that I've controlled these weeds, and then it can be planted out. And that way you can have your bargain. Next, give the pot a squeeze. If there's a lot of resistance, that means it's packed full of roots. And that can be a problem unless you know your plants. You see, this grass, along with this heliconia, this cordyline and palms, they belong to a group of plants called monocots. Monocots have short-lived fibrous root systems, so they don't mind being root-bound. A root-bound grass like this, all it needs is a bigger pot or to be planted in the ground. This is a bargain. But when you're dealing with dicots, like woody trees and shrubs, including this citrus, their roots are long-lived. And if they've been in a pot for too long, the roots may have spiralled around the pot. And you'll have to prune those off when you plant it in the ground. Otherwise, they'll never recover and the plant will never perform properly. So there's a big difference if you can tell the difference between monocots and dicots. So this may be a bargain, but this grass definitely is. At the end of the season, when plants have finished flowering, they lose their appeal, and it's quite understandable that they'll be marked down to sell. But if you know your plants, you'll understand that this geranium and this brachyscome are actually perennials, so they will live and flower again. All you need to do is to make a decision. If you live in a cold climate where there's frosts, this geranium will have to sit indoors in a frost-free position all through winter, so you've got to be patient. This brachyscome, that needs a haircut right now, and that will rejuvenate the plant, and it will carry on flowering when spring arrives. So a little bit of action, a little bit of patience, both of these are bargains. Annual plants last for one flowering season, and that's it. If they've already done this in the nursery, there's not much point bringing them home to your place to live out their final days. The same goes for all annuals. It can be really hard to resist that discount sticker, but if you follow my tips, you won't bring home a dud. Remember, the most that all plants need is a little bit of TLC.
Gardens are places of inspiration. When you're out here in the thick of it, the mind wanders and you can feel the creativity flowing. Our next story is with an artistic couple who've not only built a garden, but a way of life and a body of creative work all intertwined. Take a look.
do work for a couple of hours most days in the garden because it's just a great way to start the day.
We got pumpkins and beans and tomatoes and strawberries and asparagus. It's relaxing. I love being out there with, you know, having a garden that you've created where all the birds come in and everything, and you just watch nature as it is. But then I've never outgrown my childish enthusiasm for quirky things.
Well, I'm George Cork, and we live in Mount Barker, Western Australia, 6324. And I live here with my lovely wife on this lovely property where we've created this garden. Also an avenue to express our art through a gallery that we've built together. I call myself a creative maker, and Sue works in different art mediums of her own. So we live here together like that. When Sue and I were first courting, we came to Mount Barker for a visit, and we really, really loved the place then. And this is going back to the 1970s, early 70s. But we ended up going to South Australia, and we spent 5.5 years there. In that time, we had children, and then we felt the urge to come back to Western Australia to be with family, because we'd already discovered the joy of growing our own food on a little property of 4 acres, and that was the catalyst that set us off. And we've lived that lifestyle ever since. And when we found this particular property, it had everything that we needed. Well, it had a lovely old shed as I use as my gallery workshop, and it's a 21-acre property. So we have the gardens, which cover probably 2 acres, and then the rest we run a few hobby farm cattle, which I've constantly told are morbidly obese. So we're obviously looking after them too well.
Your guts. The soil's okay. I don't think it's extraordinary. There's, you know, other places that you go to and people just seem to be able to put things in the ground and they just grow, whereas here you've got to work at it a little bit, but the rainfall is good. Things grow all right.
Yeah, it's a very mild climate.
Yeah.
Very mild, and it's great for gardening.
We've been here now 18 years. There was basically nothing here when we started. There was an old chook yard out the back and a little bit of a veggie garden. So, yeah, I started from there and just put lots of organic stuff on there and fertiliser, and the chooks were right there. We'd just interact, you know, like they'd give us the manure and I'd give them the scraps. Had a lot of fun because I had complete control of it at that time. So I would just grow what we needed. George tends to want to grow for the town.
Grow for the town.
And bring all this stuff in and say, oh, look what I've grown, and then I've got to try and work out what I'm going to do with it. So, no, we just...
It's a great relationship, you know? It works. Then we started to develop this idea of rooms, you know, and I'd actually been to San Francisco and seen the Japanese gardens there. I come home and I said to Sue, we're going to build a Japanese garden. We're going to get rid of all those veggie patches. This is just going to be a huge... No, George, settle down, you know. Like, so we put those bamboos in, and then suddenly it started to lend itself to the idea of a Japanese garden. We built a little Japanese tea house. We built the Torii gate and then the pathways, and then we started to get in plants that we thought would work in a Japanese garden. Then I went to a bonsai summer school. To me, it's another art form. It's a beautiful art form. It's a great way to express yourself. I think my favourite there would be a Chinese elm, and that's one Sue bought me as a gift, actually. One day we were in that area where the French garden is. Sue got in there and started chopping out a circle, and we paved it. And then what really inspired it was we had a visit to the gallery from France, and he came to have a look at the gardens, and he sat in there and he says, take my photo, I feel like I'm home. And that was amazing. So then it became the French garden.
Here's to all your hard work, love.
To me, the garden is just an extension of the gallery. We've created this space for initially our own enjoyment and our own inspiration and satisfaction. Now we invite the public who come to the gallery to come and experience the same thing. And it's become a gallery, you know. We have the thing like the telephone box, which was Sue's great idea, and people will come and they'll be moved by it in some way.
I think it was my daughter that actually gave me the book to read. It was called The Telephone at the Edge of the World, and it was about the tsunami that they had in Japan, and afterwards they created this garden and they put this telephone box in there that people could go to because they'd lost people, and when you lose someone there's always something that you wish you'd said to them. So these people would travel to this phone box and go and talk to their loved ones. And I just said, George read the book too, and he said, yeah, that's a really cool idea. So he says, oh, I'll make a phone box.
And that's what Sue and I have always done together. I've always had that creativity and design. I love design, and that's part of my artwork now is I will design something and then the challenge is creating it, making it. Sometimes the timber does help me with the design of what I'm trying to achieve. I have timber there that I've collected over many years, and some of it's been sitting there for a long time, and sometimes I'll look through it and I'll think, yes, that piece is exactly what I need. Working in the timber industry first and then moving into the steel side of things, I now combine the two mediums together. Or if I take stuff to an exhibition, they'll know that's probably a George Cork because there'll be some steel and wood mixed together, and that's what I'm known for.
Yeah, Mum. My studio space was created, probably not as a studio to start with, it was just a space for me because George had the shed. George created it for me out of recycled timber, and it's grown from there. I collect a lot of natural matter that I can weave with. I love it, and in wintertime I can come down here, there's plenty of light, plenty of warmth, and I can just do what I want to do and be inspired. I like basketry or woven things. When I do the prunings, I'm always twisting things up. It's called random weaving. I love it. It's a cheap art that you can do. If it doesn't work, you can just put it on the bonfire.
Burn it.
and you burn the evidence.
So we have big bonfires now and then.
Thank you.
Well, we did this for ourselves, and now we just want to share it with people, you know, and that is very satisfying.
It's time to get moving and grooving with the latest edition of Your Jobs for the Weekend. Cool temperate gardeners, this Sunday is Botanic Gardens Day. So why not spend some time exploring your local botanic garden, appreciating the science, scenery and serenity. Winter grass is starting to take over turf, so it's time to act. As soon as you see the bright green leaves, dig the clumps out and feed to the chooks, or make a weed tea for the garden. Feeling fruity? Bung in a banana. Find a sunny, protected corner of your garden or courtyard and give some of the cold-tolerant varieties like Red Dhaka, Dwarf Cavendish and Rajapuri a go. In warm temperate gardens, it's hydrangea haircut time. Remove spent flower heads, pruning to the next healthy bud on the stem. Take off 2/3 of the foliage and it'll rocket away in spring. With winter around the corner, our thoughts turn to snow. Snow peas, of course. Sow seeds direct, install a TP or climbing frame, water well, and you'll be harvesting in just 60 days. Cooler weather means stews and roasts, so it's a great time to sow herbs such as sage, oregano and thyme into rich, fluffy, well-drained soil in a bright sunny spot. Subtropical gardeners, it's time for bare root roses. Head to a nursery and grab your fragrant favourites and plant out as soon as possible, keeping roots moist but not wet. Find space under cabbages and kale and have a crack at shade-loving landcress, Barbaria vulgaris. A cracking companion plant, the leaves are edible, hot, spicy and great in salads. If you love herbs, it's time to pop in some parsley. Curly or Italian, parsley is reliable and great in pots or plots, enjoying full sun to part shade. Harvest regularly for bigger, bushier plants. In the tropics, it's time to put in a dragon fruit. These spectacular night-flowering cacti are climbers and grow best on tall, strong supports. Plus, the fruit is refreshing and delicious. The silk floss tree, Ceiba speciosa, is a large, fast-growing shade tree worth considering. Related to the boab, the spiny trunk and flamingo pink flowers make this one a stunner. This is the start of Dinijingama, season of heavy dew, for the Goulburn people of the Darwin region, when sugarbag honey, Dadbingwa, is collected from tree hollows. Arid gardeners, if you've struggled to grow celery, pop in some parsley. Unfazed by humidity, heat or full sun, the stems and small leaves of parsley taste like both parsley and celery. Yum! Textural, trendy, tough and terrific winter flowers say hello to an aloe. Perfect for arid gardens, there's hundreds of these stunning succulent cultivars perfect for pots and plots. Why not get involved with the friends group of your local park or botanic garden? It's a great way to meet like-minded people and do something meaningful in your neighbourhood and community. Get out there this weekend, gardeners, and have a ripper. And if you need more information about Botanic Gardens Day this Sunday, head to the Gardening Australia website. Well, that's all she wrote for another week. But don't stress. We're already working on what's in store for next time.
I'm going to show you a garden in regional Victoria. It's hot, it's dry, it's freezing cold, and it's really beautiful.
I'm taking some time to reconnect with nature.
You can even take this sound mapping exercise anywhere you go through, moving through any type of landscape.
And I'll show you a few ways to sneak in some edible perennial plants around your garden. And there's always room to squeeze some in.